Welcome, everybody. This is Hugh Massie, the chairman and founder of DNA Behaviour International. And today I'm delighted to be hosting another identity conversation. And with me is Bill Hortz, who is the founder and dean of the Innovation Development Institute. And Bill's had a very long and interesting career in the funds management, financial services industry, is a thought leader and a very insightful man who's helping direct our industry into the future. So welcome, Bill.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm quite excited.
No, I'm excited to have you along, and just to hear a little bit more, Bill, about your career and life history and what's got you to this place, and for spending really all of your career dedicated to the great industry we're in financial services.
Well, yeah, it's a story. I absolutely, to try to be succinct. I mean, I think, when I graduated Columbia University in 1980, I was always upset, with the concept of specializing, having a major and focusing on just one topic. I wanted to learn a lot of stuff, and I did. I took courses on this, that, and the other thing. Anything that piqued my interest, and I'm easily fascinated by things. So so the idea of I had to, focus on something. I finally decided psychology. No matter what I do, I'm going to have to deal with people. So I might as well, if I have to major in something, I majored in psychology, but, I didn't have real plans, to go into psychology or any particular area. I was just fascinated with learning about a lot of different things. And someone gave me the advice, when I graduated, Columbia is at the top of the island, and they said, well, go south, young man. Well, you can't go more south than Wall Street, in Manhattan. So that's where I went, and I happened to find a position where I was the right hand of the top salesman of this mutual fund group that was starting a distribution effort with intermediaries. But he was great man, fantastic. I mean, it was great he inspired me in many ways, and he basically had me as his right hand, person, and that's the great position. For the first position, that was fantastic because when the head guy talks and does things with key clients, and don't worry, we'll take care of it. Hey, Bill, so I was the one who was called, here, fix this, do this, and they had their own administration. They had a whole family of mutual funds, and, so working with portfolio managers, developing sales idea. So I was doing it all, working with the wholesalers, working with the internal sales desk, and all that kind of stuff. So it was a great first, because that's how I got into financial services. It was more by, accident, or quirk. And I liked the concept once I got there. I read a book about what is a mutual fund the day before my interview, because I didn't take, economics and all those type of finance or whatever. I took a little bit of everything in psychology. So I just started learning, and I realized, boy, there's a lot to this. There's technology, and there's psychology. It's such a broad base of knowledge you need to really be able to tell stories about financial products and services and the areas they're in, and international. And so it kind of fit in not a planned way. So that's how I got into financial services. And I then spent 20 years being head of sales in a number of organizations: Templeton, before Franklin Templeton, Neuberger Berman. I worked with a Hong Kong-based Asian asset manager, Peregrine, part of the huge investment bank. So I had a lot of varied experiences, but the key thing in running wholesalers, I always felt, is to develop a consultative process.
Yeah.
Don't just sell to your clients, but be a resource to your clients, and I was always involved in talking to consultants, and in the mutual fund industry, there's a term called, value add services, right? And that's where the mutual fund company would develop these business development modules and other types of programs, so they can help work with advisors, not just sell to them. And I was a great believer in that. So, and we were very early. I mean, 20 years, we were always looking, how to build process, lead generation. We were also very early in doing something called behavioral finance, and doing a module and all that, I mean, and how do you use it? What is it? How to use it? And what are the practical and, benefits and things like that in working with your client. So 20 years, we're always looking at that. And we were working in 9 different sales cultures, right? So you had to learn to tell your story a little bit differently, going into a wirehouse versus going into an RIA, going into a independent or insurance group, a pension consultant, you can't sell them, So, but you have to learn the sales cultures, and then how do you apply that story to the culture that here's how you use it, and here's how it can benefit you, So we did a lot of that for 20 years. Then at the turn of the millennium, the opportunity came to work with Oppenheimer funds. And there, particularly, the area was what's called key accounts or strategic accounts. So it's not really a sales position. I mean, in many cases, it's still developed as a sales position where you're working with the home office of the firms, not with the actual advisors in the trenches. But there, you're now working with the home office leaders, and now you're working to help support their annual conferences there, and which are very important to them, right? They want to have great content. Don't just send me your wholesalers. Don't just send me just even your portfolio managers. These are our themes, and this is what's important that we want to. So how can you help us? So as well as their practice management programs. And again, in business initiatives, this year we're going to really focus on this area. So again, it became my job now, like I was doing with advisors in the different areas. Now I'm working with the home offices of trying to be a resource and trying to look for ideas and different ways to provide resources that would be helpful to their needs, in those areas. And Oppenheimer Funds was a great creative group. We were doing very, very creative things across the board. And so that was a great learning experience there, taking it to another level. But through all this period of time, I'm always looking for new ideas and something different. And, everyone else has this kind of module, so you want to be first or early on new ideas. So constantly looking. So what happened towards the end of my stint at Oppenheimer Funds was that I started going to global cross-industry, conferences and groups, and I was trying to drag people from the industry to come with me. Oh, what do you want to go to that for? But the point is, we went to the Strategic Account Management Association. How do you build, intimacy with your top clients? How do you really build that relationship, to outposition your competitors, but really be meaningful to your clients? How do you do that? Global cross industry. And the great thing there is you have all these different industries. We in financial services did things a certain way,
Yeah.
And we're used to doing things a certain way. And and again, success means you keep doing it that way, So going to these conferences, now I learned 2 things. One, what do you mean? What is it you're doing? What you mean you can do that? That was stuff that just started blowing my mind. What do you know? We don't do that in our industry, but you do this in your industry with your client. So, but some of them were really, and talk about innovation and really engaging and doing things that, we can do that. It really started opening up. And the second thing I learned is the single greatest strategy in the history, okay, of strategic account management that has worked to really build that engagement to the exclusion of all competitors and really build that intimacy and really become a real strategic partner is to co-innovate with them.
Yeah.
It goes back to IBM, right? They were on the ropes. What did they do? They started 10 corporate universities and their 10 major business lines, brought in professors, they learned with their clients, and when something was needed, we're going in this direction, but we need this. Who's in the room? They raise their hand and say, we'll help you build that. And there's no competitors around, So that idea of co-innovating was really revelatory to me at the time. So I started going to cross-industry global business innovation conferences, like the Front End of Innovation in Boston, Chief Innovation Office in New York City. And again, not the ones where we're talking to ourselves, just the financial services one. I wanted specifically to go to the global ones to get that more encompassing view and outlying ideas and things like that, So again, that just blew my mind. It just blew I'm sitting there, I'm listening to people talking about what they're doing and the experimentation they're doing and all that. And the one thing that was starting to really upset me, really pissed me off, really upset, okay, was as I was going to these different conferences, the percentage, all industries represent, it's 5,000 people, the percentage of the participants, they're learning, exchanging ideas from financial services, I'll be kind, okay, was subpar, okay, very subpar, okay, and, it was getting me annoyed. We're not in the room. We're not learning any of this stuff, So I thought of what came to my mind immediately was that saying, if Muhammad won't go to the mountain has to go to Muhammad. The mountain became the Institute for Innovation Development. I decided that I need to develop a platform that would act as a magnet that hopefully I can be a good curator for, what we're going to be bringing in that can help build awareness and practical application, the need for having to be more innovative. So first we have to define it and then show the immediate vital relevance for an advisor, and the industry overall. And then how do we apply it? How do we do it? And my first thought from there was the best way is not to give people a bunch of just definitions, it's to tell them stories, to illustrate.
Yeah.
So that was my idea, to start doing thought leadership articles that dug, right? How did you come up with that idea? What were the first steps you took when you came up with that idea? What yet has to be learned? What are the applications on what you built? What's the, so really kind of digging in. And I'm very happy and proud to say we've now, completed over 200 articles, in the fintech area, in asset management, in client and community engagement. There's an art and science going on here about that. And then business management itself and financial services. There's new tools and ways of managing your limited time, money, and effort that, like fintech companies, are being taught these new management techniques and processes and ways of looking at things that are the incumbents here in the industry don't even know about. They haven't even heard. I've talked to a number of people and I said, here's some tools being used, in the fintech companies, these young competitors coming in, and the incumbents are, never heard of that, so, so again, that's the value of, I thought, of the Institute, where we can curate, and that I can be a good curator of finding what are those stories in these areas, kind of covering the waterfront of where business innovation is going. And that was the idea, for the Institute, how I got there. What, I take up all the time? All right.
Well, no, I think I'll let you go because I think it's a fabulous story, and you've really connected the journey from starting off at, Columbia University doing psychology and then going into the big world down the street on Wall Street into funds management, and without directly being a funds manager, but you really brought your curious mind, innovative mind, and shown advisors how they can get in the front door to their clients who, well, if the fund manager, the salespeople, to get into the front door of the advisor and provide value added resources, because I think that's something that a lot of fund managers have and the salespeople have struggled with over the years, is how do we engage the advisor with new thinking? And that's really, at the end of the day, that's the way to build the sales book, as you said, through consultative selling. But I think, Bill, you've taken it to another degree, because when I started in the industry in America, Oppenheimer was by far the leader in this. That's where I saw the most content and the best content. And obviously, you're a big player behind it. But I think what I find interesting now is you've used your innovative talents to go outside financial services and find the best thinking and bring it back in the industry, because financial services has to change, and it's not going to change from within the industry. It's got to change from outside thinking.
As always, is historically the case for almost any industry.
Yeah.
This isn't an unusual situation, but it's a vitally important, timely one now. What we basically try to emphasize is that the single, our stance from the Institute is that the single greatest challenge financial services industry has right now, and we have lots of challenges, and that's fine, regulation and this, that, and the other thing, but the single greatest one above all of them, we feel, is that we're working in a new business environment, one that is driven by an accelerating rate of change. Yeah. It is a completely different business. Now, we've always had change. We've always dealt with change, but nothing like this. I mean, the story I try to tell, especially, people in the industry, like advisors, is I use something that we can connect with, something that's known in common. And so I said, you're aware of the compound interest chart, right? And it's the premise for why you tell a client why you have to invest, because of the magic of compounding. It builds. You got to do it consistently. Then it starts doing this curve. No one can explain that. That's the math, right? And then it starts compounding, and then it starts almost like going straight up. So that's the magic of compounding. That's why you need to invest for the long term. Stick with it. Be consistent, right? Now, I tell people, use that chart and look at the chart as the change, the rate of change, right? And it shows that we've always had to deal with change, and sometimes it was generational. Early, it took a while, but we're now at this point, just at this curve. We're here, right? Just off this curve. 3 years from now, you're going to be here. What are you going to do here? If the rate of change is happening, so, and it's feeding on it, new technologies get feeding on each other and developing. Well, whole industries are can have massive change happen in 3 to 5 years, and that's what we're looking at. So, for us, the Institute is trying to be a clarion bell, right? And we're trying to really state that this is kind of yes, efficiency is important, absolutely. and we're very good at training at that, being efficient, and, maybe you can get 10% more next year if you do this and that, whatever. No, no. I mean, yes, it's important, but innovation now is vital. Okay. It's the next and most important immediate step, because we're dealing with this curve, right? So that's
and everybody's got to be very adaptable now, because the innovation happens so quickly, to be able to adapt to it. And, the leaders have to recognize that within themselves, but also in the teams that they hire. But as I always say to people, you can't change everybody on the team. You've got to have some anchoring somewhere to keep the business sustainable, but you've got to have the adaptability there, which comes with the innovation. I think that's one of the big things. But, just going back to your psychology degree, and you touched on behavioral finance, how do you see that as playing a role in the future of the industry?
Well, behavioral finance and the whole concept of working with your clients to truly engage, to really work with the individuality, the uniqueness of each client, so this way you can truly connect, right? Is vital. And I think, the industry is obviously, some of the major shifts are that, the industry is becoming more holistic to some degree, right? Where, instead of being known as, financial, you're a financial, so you sell stocks and bonds, no, we do a lot more than that, and by being more holistic, and you can really, bring in the wholeness of the needs of the client, of what the risks are, and really become a very meaningful contributor in like a consultant, like a coach, to help them through this process. So understanding the behavioral nature of clients, and the whole idea of behavioral finance and all that is critical. And it's, some of the things you're doing, embedding it in technology, into processes, you have that behavior chip, which that's amazing. And that is one way to help people start using these concepts, right? If you figure out a way to embed it, into the work process. So, but that's crucial, and that's what's making financial advisors more, consultative, and be looked at as life coaches, and again, high net worth, taking care of, family office kind of structure of, being able to, really provide benefits and services that are most needed for each individual client.
Yeah, because my hope at the end of the day, somebody asked me that this morning, what's your dream? And I hope that every client in the industry, not just the wealthy, but right down through all levels, are able to have a tailor-made suit put on them by the financial services provider. And the only way that can happen is technology. So we've got to be able to embed these behavioral insights into technology. So, but just taking this forward, Bill, in terms of you completing your own financial DNA, which you did a few years ago, and we've been conversing for the last few years, on innovative thinking. What was your reaction to financial DNA? And just for the audience listeners, Bill's an initiator, which means he's fairly driven to create change, but also comes with that highly creative. So just sort of tell us a little bit more about your reaction to financial DNA in what you're doing and as an investor.
Well, looking at it, the first time, and it really points out things. A lot of times you're doing what you're doing naturally, right? It's your natural right, or abilities or whatever. You're just doing it. You're not really honing it or directing it as to the highest degree. You're not thinking about it, right? You're doing it. So one, having the ability to have yourself kind of laid out a bit, in that report. Here's your strengths. Here's some areas to look at. But really breaking that down, it was very helpful, and because one, it helped me do a little more, a deeper thinking about what I'm doing, right? So, I'm kind of on track with this, doing that, but I could do it even more so, if I integrate some of these other ideas and thoughts. So I think it really, the biggest benefit is it helps you think about yourself and your talents, and particularly what you're doing to be a guide or a reference, to be able to take yourself to the next level, or to, really achieve those goals that you want for yourself. So that was my first major takeaway.
Yeah, and I think, Bill, with innovation so strong in your financial DNA style, and you sort of talked about compounding before, and a lot of the time we talk about compounding in terms of returns, but the fact that from day one of your life and career in financial services, you've been innovating in a way the industry's been able to benefit, I think, from on a compounded basis from you all the time, using your innovative talents and building on that and taking it deeper, and becoming this curator of great innovative content from not only within the industry but from outside. I think that's something that's fantastic here, and I think for our listeners is really, you can see here with Bill how your own development has gone because you've been given the freedom to use your innovation talents. But how do you see yourself in the future? What do you see as your identity in the industry in the future? Because like me, you're still a young man and got a lot more to contribute. And I mean that seriously, because I'm working on my next stages of this as well, and I think so. I just want to sort of see where you see your identity going to now.
First off, I want to go back to what you said, and said that was very generous when you said that I'm helping the industry. I doing my part, at each step along the way, hoping, was coming up with new ideas and things. But that does directly answer your current question, is where do I see myself going forward, or where are we going with this, with the Institute, and particularly what I'd like to achieve with it is again, to try to really, knowledge is useless if it's not shared and it's not applied. I mean, it's not, developed into discourse and, to lead to understanding and learning how to use it, So I really look at the Institute, which, by the way, now has 100 members, which are, fintech companies, progressive asset management firms, people, firms that are working with clients and in client engagement and community engagement, and then the business innovation, tools and stuff like that. We want to develop, these stories to really engage people, and to be looked at as a resource that, to help motivate, to build that awareness, and to get more movement more engagement towards these different areas. I mean, first of all, when you think about business innovation, there's for a lot of people, okay, a large percentage, those are different connotations, when I say it, when maybe you say it, there's a lot of other people hear other things when you say, oh no, I don't want to do that, that's scary. It's that, so there's different aspects. So I think it's very important that we want to keep building these thought leadership articles and engagement of discourse to really, really break it down and show people, no, this is accessible, and this is something that you can do. And let's learn from the innovators. And that's why we have that, format we have of the Q&A, where we're asking them, how did you come up with the idea? I think a third if not a little higher, of the fintech companies that we have that are members are all RIAs or, advisors who got sick and tired of a problem and finally just decided, let me do something about it, hired some coders, and then all of a sudden developed into a fintech, company. So it's very interesting. And I think that's an important story to tell. This is not only a technologist can do this. No, you, an advisor, okay, or anyone can really be able to, if there's a process to it. So we delineate it, we chronicle it, we give examples of it. We hope to help inspire and be a resource, and at the same time, be able to put spotlights on the innovators out there who are really slugging this out. Coming up, and it's not an easy process,
No.
but there are tools, techniques, processes that help. And by showing how they've done it, hopefully we can change the mindset and move the direction faster in that direction. So our goal is to be looked at as that resource, that industry, resource, where we can be profiling, promoting, and helping the industry understand what business innovation is, how it's being applied across the industry, and exactly how. So that can be a guidebook, for others, or an inspiration for others.
Because I think a very important word you used in there was applied knowledge. That's what I picked up in there, and I've picked up curator of applied knowledge resources. That seems to me to be the common theme, and bringing people together to make it all practical, helping them build a process, because it's one thing to have the idea, but you've got to build a process around it, and it's not an easy thing to do. I think maybe I wish I had found you earlier, but we all go on it. We all go on a journey. But Bill, as we wrap up here, is there anything else you'd like to share with our audience?
I would like to share a book that I think is very important, that goes to the heart of this discussion, and again, the reason behind the Institute and business and learning about business innovation. There's a book that's called, in fact, ta-da!
Oh,
Innovators DNA. Okay,
fantastic.
Right, by Clayton Christensen and Jeff Dyer, Hal Gregerson. But they did a study a number of years ago on top innovators, and those were serial entrepreneurs, fintech CEOs, molecular scientists developing new drugs. They were looking at all different areas of creators, of different types of innovators and creators, CEOs that's changed the nature of their industries, and they were trying to see, is there something endemic to them? Are they hardwired a different way? What can we learn from studying these people? So they spent 5 years, direct interviews, 360 interviews, psychometric tests. They poked them with sticks. I don't know. They did all kinds of things to try to, and they determined one thing, which was, two things. But the first thing they determined is there's nothing hardwired, specific, psychometric, or whatever these type of people are innovators, and all the rest of us, we can, sorry, they're the ones who are touched by God, but they determined, no, that is not the case through all the testings and things that they did. But they did uncover something else. And what they did uncover is that this group of people spend 50% more time, than the typical business owner. And they were around a couple of skills set, where they decided to put their focus of their time. And the four things are, and I don't want to, mistake it here, so I have it written here. So first one is questioning, right? These people asked lots of questions. They didn't one question answered it and go away. They kept asking, multiple, but digging. It became an art form. Okay, of how they're constantly asking questions, observing. Okay, most people look at things, they don't observe it. But observing, really paying attention, looking at things going on, what's working, what's happening. The third is networking, and not just going to a club where you exchange business cards, meaningful, thought out networking of that. I want to make sure that I have inroads to different professions, different types of thinkers, different types of people, and types, so it's a very deliberate building of a network that expands you. And the fourth is experimenting, cheap, quick, easy. Call 5 clients this week and try an idea on them, see what they say. They're constantly, it's not a big thing to just do lots of little experiments, try things, So those 4 skills, they spend more time doing than the typical person. Now, what happens there? They can't help it. Those 4 skill sets, if you build them, you're going to be uncovering new ideas. That's how they get uncovered, because you're doing these things that much more. And then you got to learn how you mix and match, how you connect these different things you uncovered. So this book, bottom line, the message is, anyone in any company, in any industry, anywhere in the world can be innovative. So that's, I think, the most important message that we're also trying to second and further promote by drilling it down and giving examples and giving it context.
Well, thank you, Bill. I think that's very comprehensive, and I believe it is a great message for CEOs and the C-suite leadership team to hear what you've just said, and having taking the 4 steps there to innovate. And I think what's important is that you give yourself the space to do it. R&D is very important, but you've got to create the mental space for yourself to be able to do it and allow it to happen, which comes down to structuring your business plan and creating that room and making sure your team understand also what's going on. Even Leon said that to me the other day. We were doing our planning, and I've got to manage my creative work to ensure that it gets done, but I don't bombard the team as well. And there's an art to that, but it's got to happen. Otherwise, you can't grow. So I think it's a great message there, and I'd encourage everybody, particularly the CEOs and senior leaders, to read that book and understand, there's a process to this for innovation. So thank you, Bill. It's been wonderful to spend time with you today.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate the time with you.